All right, this is part 7 of my 2023 NFL predictions, and in this one we've got the AFC North, which a lot of people say is the best division in football. But jumping right into it, starting out in 4th place, I've got the Cleveland Browns finishing with a record of 7-10, which is exactly what they finished with last year. Um, Now, of course, this year is different. They have Deshaun Watson playing what they hope for is the full year, barring any injury. We know Jacoby Brissett played the first 8 or maybe it was 10 games last year, and he kept them pretty much in it. But with Watson, they couldn't make a late season push for the playoffs. And on paper, this team is really good, so I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of made a push. But compared to these other teams, not only in this division, but as a whole in the AFC, which we know is a really tough conference, the Browns really never made a big push to put themselves over the top as a team in this division. Their top 2 acquisitions this past offseason were Elijah Moore and Zadarius Smith. And compared to these other teams, the Dolphins bringing in Jalen Ramsey, the Jets bringing in Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers doing all these things to help the development of Kenny Pickett, the Browns really didn't do that much. Now we'll see what they can do, like I said, with the full season now of Deshaun Watson, but they didn't have last year. But one thing I want to throw out there is that I think Kevin Stefanski is on a burning hot seat. If the Browns finish with the same record as they did last year, which is what I'm predicting here, I think he may be one of the first coaches fired on Black Monday, which we know is the first Monday after Week 18. So we'll see what happens with this Cleveland team, but let's just say I'm not a big fan of Watson and that whole situation, especially with all the trade rumors with the Dolphins. But I'm really not a fan of this Cleveland Browns team, and I don't think that they can really contend for a division title. But moving into 3rd place, this may be a shocker, but I have the Baltimore Ravens finishing with a record of 10-7. Now the offense on this team is electric. With the healthy Lamar Jackson, who got his new contract, so I know Ravens fans are really happy about that. A healthy J.K. Dobbins, and now they drafted Zay Flowers. They signed OBJ. Of course, Mark Andrews is already that starting tight end. They improved the O-line. This offense is really good. And the secondary on this team has always been good. There would be times last season where the defense would definitely be the reasons why they would lose games. Specifically that Miami Dolphins game where Tua and the Dolphins came back from 21 down in the 4th quarter, and then I think it wasn't the week after, but a couple weeks later against the Bills at home, maybe it was in Buffalo actually, they were up 14 late in the game, or maybe it was 10, but that defense completely blew the game for them, and that changed the outcome of the season because they were really contending with Cincinnati to finish first in that division, and of course they ended up barely making the wild card and then losing to Cincinnati on the road. That was with Tyler Huntley, I think, at quarterback, though. So, but one thing that does scare me with this team is the pass rush. Now, like I said, I'm a big fan of that secondary. We know the secondary is really good, but all it takes is a couple seconds of the quarterback having a lot of time in that pocket to dice up that defense. And like I said, it was a reason why they lost a lot of the games that they lost last season. And especially playing these quarterbacks in this division like Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow and what I think Kenny Pickett can become this season. And on top of that, just a generally tough schedule playing the other teams in this AFC. The defense can once again be a reason why this team loses games. And that can all be just because of a couple seconds in the pocket because of the lack of the pass rush. So, this Ravens team is going to be fun to watch, especially with the healthy Lamar. Hopefully he can stay healthy this season. Last time we saw fully healthy Lamar, he was the MVP of the league. So, we'll see what he can do this year. But moving into 2nd place, I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers finishing with a record of 11-6. Now, if you can't tell I'm already a fan of this team, I'm going to tell you right now, I am a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not physically, I'm a Dolphins fan, but I think that the Steelers can do really, really well this season. And that all starts with Kenny Pickett, and I think he's going to be playing really, really good football this year. I'm a big fan of what the Steelers have done in his development this offseason. Seeing him play in the preseason, he's been looking really good, especially in that Falcons game, throwing a deep ball to George Pickens. We can get used to seeing that. Speaking of George Pickens, him and Deontay Johnson are a really good wide receiver duo. Now you're adding Allen Robinson to that group. You're drafting Darnell Washington, basically a 6 offensive lineman who can also catch, to a tight end room with Pat Fryermuth, who's a beast. Speaking of the O-line, they brought in Isaac Seumalo to be the starting left guard. Broderick Jones may turn into the starting left tackle. He might be on day one. I'm actually not too sure. And then on defense, they brought in Joey Porter Jr. at a position that really lacked for them last season. I can keep talking about this team. You have TJ Watt on the line. You have Cameron Hayward basically a couple feet away from him. If I said TJ Watt, I forgot if I said the wrong name or not. I can keep talking about this team if you want. On top of that, you have one of, if not the best coaches in the NFL in Mike Tomlin. This team can be really good this year. If they can hit their ceiling, they can potentially compete with Cincinnati to win this division. If they have a little drop off for any reason, I don't think that's going to happen. But for any reason, if Pittsburgh does win the division, Mike Tomlin should win Coach of the Year. If he doesn't, the NFL is rigged. You can come back to this clip. I don't think they're going to win the division, but if they do, Mike Tomlin better be winning his Coach of the Year. But I like the Steelers team, man. I'm excited to watch week 1 against the Niners. A little spoiler, I may have an upset or not in that game at 1 o'clock because it's in, you know what, I actually forgot where it's at. I forgot where this game is being played, but either way, I have the Steelers winning that week 1 game against the Niners. Now, the Niners always disappoint week 1. The Steelers always surprise people week 1. And, you know, you add those two together and we have an upset on our hands. So I'm excited to see the Kenny Pickett development this season. Like I said, I'm a big fan of him and what the Steelers have done to support him. I think the Steelers can really be something special. And on that note, I have the Steelers finishing as the 6th seed in the AFC. The Ravens, I have them missing the playoffs. Forgot to mention that. But now moving into the leader of this division, it's the Cincinnati Bengals once again with a record of 13-4. I have them as the... I actually forgot what seed. But I know that obviously they're one of the top seeds. I have them as the 1 seed actually finishing in the AFC. So they, in my prediction, will get the first round bye. But yeah, I mean, this offense, we already know what we're going to be getting out of it. They have that wide receiver trio of Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. They lost Samaje Perine, whatever. They replaced him, actually, I don't know with who, but we know that Joe Mixon is still running back 1 on this team, so it doesn't really matter. They improved the O-line by bringing in Orlando Robinson Jr. to protect Joe Burrow's blind side. They're hoping that that'll help, especially considering he's coming off of that, what is it, Achilles, something, a strain, something like that. They say he's going to be ready to go for week 1, which is good for the Bengals considering that they're playing a division rival in the Browns week 1. The secondary, though, it's basically the opposite of the Ravens. The offense is good, but the pass rush is there. Definitely there. Trey Hendrickson on one side, Sam Hubbard on the other, DJ Reader in the middle, but that secondary scares me. I like one of the safeties in Dax Hill, but when you look at that cornerback room, you have Chidobe Awuzie on one side, and on the other, I think it's Cam Taylor-Britt, if I'm thinking right, because Eli Apple's gone, Troy Hill's gone. I think it's Cam Taylor-Britt as cornerback number 2 on opening day. So, you know, maybe they can make a move at some point this season. Like, you know, the trade deadline last year was crazy. So I think that the Bengals can possibly make something happen. But, I mean, that's something I'd be kind of worried about if I were a Bengals fan. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I mean, honestly, I have this team still finishing with 13 wins because that offense is one of, if not the best in the NFL. So I don't think it's going to poise to be a huge problem. But come playoff time, playing games in January and February, you know, that secondary, it may not be able to pass as much. So we'll see what the Cincinnati team does, though. Those are my AFC North predictions. It's going to be a pretty wild division going back and forth throughout the entire year. Only one more division to go. That's the AFC West. Kind of waiting on the Chris Jones and Travis Kelce situation. But once we get a little more word on that, that will come out. And then the week 1 predictions will probably be coming out on Friday. But a YouTube short of my prediction for the Chiefs-Lions opener will be coming out tomorrow afternoon at some point. So stay tuned for that. But either way, that'll wrap up. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day. Peace.